This is Unit 2, Week 2 Vocabulary Review. I'll just talk through some of the vocab for some of you stressing about a quiz. Not that any students would, do that ever. The first 9 are basically types of government systems. Ocracy meaning rule of, democracy, ruled by the people. Remember, the United States is not technically a democracy. That would mean direct, or not a direct democracy where everyone participates and votes on everything. We're a representative democracy where we elect a group who make decisions for us. Aristocracy is a rule by the aristocrats or the wealthy. Oligarchy, just a rule by a group. So technically, aristocracy and representative democracy are actually types of oligarchy. Plutocracy is ruled by the wealthy. It's similar to aristocracy, although we could argue the United States today is in many ways a plutocracy, ruled by the rich, although they're not the rich with title, not the dukes and the earls. So they're not aristocrats. Might be the government is dominated by the well-to-do. You could say we're a default plutocracy. Monarchy, dictatorship, straightforward. Theocracy is ruled by religion or a religious group. Another kind of oligarchy in many ways. And a republic, which is what the United States technically is, because we're not a true representative democracy, because people don't represent everyone, they represent regions. If I'm a U.S. Senator from California, I represent the region or district of California, so I'm representing a territory or an area, and so that's my republic, means they represent a particular group, not necessarily of people. And Federalists and anti-federalists, really important. Those are the folks that either are in favor of ratifying or opposed to ratifying the new Constitution. Delegate versus trustee in Congress. People often say, oh, I wish my member of Congress would vote better or do what I want. Well, that depends. Do you believe in the idea that we should elect the best person and that person should make wise decisions, even if they might not be what we are in favor of? That would be a trustee. We put our trust in this person to make decisions for us. A delegate theory of representation would be that if I'm in Congress, I should vote according to the majority of my district's opinion on every matter. Not make wise decisions, but just make decisions that are in the interest of my area. The problem is every member of Congress is both a delegate and a trustee. And so which theory of representation do they follow? Do they vote according to the interests of their district or according to just wise decisions? Checks and balances, separation of powers, we've talked about certainly, but they're not the same thing. Checks and balances are the tools to keep powers separate. And in the U.S., we don't have completely separate branches of government. We have separate institutions sharing power. The idea that the president can kind of write laws when he makes an executive order telling the Treasury Department to carry something out a certain way. The Supreme Court is the judicial branch, but it kind of writes laws when it declares a law unconstitutional or says you need to follow it this way to make this make sense. So the power to legislate and write laws is mainly in the legislative branch of Congress, but it's kind of in these other 2 branches as well. And amendments, remember there's 2 different ways to propose an amendment and 2 different ways to ratify them. First requires 2/3 to propose, both of them are 2/3. To ratify and officially have it join is a 3/4, don't forget that. And federal system. The United States has government at different levels: national, state, city, county, districts. The fact that we have all these overlapping levels of government mean that we're a federal system. Just to confuse you, the highest level is the federal government. Remember, they were afraid of the word national. And these next 2 are 18, 19, kind of important. Concurrent powers. Concurrent powers are powers which overlap between levels. For example, police or security. There are police that represent the state, the nation. So their concurrent powers are powers or jurisdictions where multiple levels have overlapping roles. Proportional representation, we don't have that in the U.S. People say this is one reason we only have 2 major parties. If we gave seats in Congress based on the percent that a party got, then more people would vote for the Green Party. Because even if they only got 3% of the vote, they would get 3% of the seats. But we don't have that. We have first past the post, which means if you win in California by 1 vote, you represent California. The whole notion is it encourages people to only try to form 2 mega parties to just slightly squeeze out the other party. So the Republicans want to be just a little bit bigger than the Democrats in each district or each state, because the first person past the post to win gets the seat. But nationwide, if you add up all the Republican percent, Democrat percent, Green percent, it has nothing to do with who's in Congress. In Europe, a lot of countries have proportional representation, which means they'll have more parties. Because if your party gets a small percent, they'll get seats in Congress. The executive order, really important idea. Executive orders are when the president explains how he's going to carry out certain policies in certain departments. Yeah, Congress passes the law, but the president can sign an executive order for how the law should be enforced in each of these different areas. Lobbyists, our country is in many ways run heavily by lobbyists. They represent different groups, organizations. They go to Congress. They used to meet with them in the lobby, hence they're called lobbyists, to sort of persuade members of Congress. Some lobbyists are so powerful and significant that they may testify before Congress. They may write up a bill because they're the expert in offshore oil drilling. Perhaps they'll be involved in writing a bill to how to manage offshore oil drilling. So lobbyists are involved in the process. They're seen as a dirty, nasty thing, but the reality is it's the principle of trying to persuade, and all people are lobbyists. Obama is a lobbyist as a president, or any president, when they send members of their administration to meet with Congress to lobby for what they would want Congress to pass. Lost off committees. Congress does all of its work in committee. They're rarely in the entire House or the entire Senate. Every member of Congress is assigned to 1 to 3 committees. They meet in that committee, they discuss things, and that's where they carry out their day-to-day affairs. Most business is done in committee. Then, if a bill is reported out of the committee, it will eventually go to be voted on by the whole House or the whole Senate. But most bills never make it out of committee. They die in committee. And there are also subcommittees too, little groups within a major committee. Electoral college is the group that actually selects the president. The people vote for people who then select the president. And clauses. These are probably the most important part in the Constitution, I think, or at least one's on the quiz intent. The Supremacy Clause, Article 6 of the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, meaning everything under the Constitution. Any law under the Constitution invalidates anything else. So the Constitution reigns supreme over all laws passed under it. Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Congress has the power to regulate commerce among the several states. Over time, this has given Congress huge power. They've expanded what they can do because they can do anything that involves the different states. And finally, the Elastic Clause. Congress can do anything necessary and proper to carry out these other ideas. So those are really major concepts, clauses that are significant in defining and ultimately expanding the power of the federal government. And that's it. And thanks for joining the Happy House of History. Good luck on the quiz.